Today I'm going to talk about media. And media is a very complex thing sometimes for people. When we think about what is media is TV, media is radio, newspapers, blogs, magazine articles, a variety of things. The media has always played an important role in U.S. politics. From the time of George Washington, Adams, and Jefferson, media was newspapers. And the attacks could be just as biting today as they were back then. Media has changed a lot. In 1959, most Americans got their news from newspapers. But by the end of the 60s, the majority of people got their news from television. Today, 99% of all homes have television. In 1997, only about 15% of Americans were online digital consumers. Now that's almost 90%. Times have changed, and with that, media changes. Newspapers, once giants of industry, have slowly vanished away. When you think about media coverage, there's an expression in media, if it bleeds, it leads. The number one selling newspaper in the country is the National Enquirer. People are interested by stories that at times deal with sex and scandal and terrible things. In 1998, the media was in Cuba. The Pope going to Cuba. But the next day the media left Cuba. The Pope was still there, but the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke. And all of a sudden that became the all-consuming thing for media for the next couple years. As I said, bad news sells. It gets people's attention. People remember negative stuff longer than they remember positive stuff. Certain presidents do better than others when it comes to media. Franklin Roosevelt was very good using radio. Obama and Reagan and Kennedy, very good when it came to media. People often say there is a liberal bias towards media. And I'm going to be honest, yes there is. And part of the reason why is if you grew up in a conservative household, going back to political socialization, you tell your parents who are making a lot of money, you want a career in journalism, that is considered a step down the economic ladder. Whereas for most people, a career in media is a step up the economic ladder. So you have those preconceived biases, even though generally the owners of media are generally more conservative than the employees they actually have on the payroll. When we think of media, we think of the three major networks. We think of major websites. We think of other networks like CNN and Fox News. One thing about media and bias, all media is bias, some more than others. And frankly, bias is good in this sense. If you don't like Donald Trump, you want to watch MSNBC. You want to see all the bad stuff. And if you are a Democrat, you don't want to watch Fox News because they will rip the thing that you believe in. So people like biases, and they're comfortable with their own preconceived biases when it came to media. American journalism has changed a great deal over time. There was the era of yellow journalism in the 1800s, muckraking, sensationalized stories. And even though it gets a lot of attention then, you still have a lot of this type of thing now because it's about getting attention. That's why when you think about the National Enquirer and other magazines in the grocery store, the crazy headlines that have some factual basis for it, they get your attention. They get you thinking. The one thing that really changed media was the Watergate Scandal. In 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Watergate complex where the Democratic National Committee headquarters were. This led to the exposing of the cover-up by President Nixon and others in his administration. 2 reporters from the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, were the leaders and found this stuff out. Suddenly, a couple things happened. Media actually got respect and attention for doing their job. The other thing, you saw a rate of increase in the number of people who wanted to go to school to study journalism and things like that. It changed the way media was looked at from being a blue-collar job to, in many ways, a white-collar job, a more prestigious type of career. You have some journalism that's kind of a niche journalism. You go to ESPN for sports, MSNBC, as far as for certain types of media, CNBC for more business news related to things, Even publications like Politico and Drudge have their own niche on certain things. A few other things I want to mention about media. Political leaders value television and the internet for media to get the message out as quick as possible. It's quick and immediate. Using Facebook and Twitter, sometimes you can control the message. Here's the message. This is what I'm telling you. This is what the message is. The internet's changing things with blogs, citizen journalism, and also the ability to be faster than television. Social media is biased. That's one thing that's true. And certain platforms will have biases in a certain way, and other certain social media will have biases in other ways. When it comes to media, there's a variety of terms you may sometimes hear. The word spin. And in spin, you're trying to turn the media to report a story a certain way. That comes from the term spinning them, getting them to look at it your way. Another factor you have in media is trial balloons, where you float an idea up there like a balloon. And if the idea gets praise, you're fine. If the idea isn't good, you can shoot the balloon down and pop it. Media events such as rallies, media events such as press conferences and things like that are designed to draw the media in to get attention to a problem. Sometimes people who work in government do things like leaking, where they give out information to media people in order to have a story reported a certain way, to sometimes make someone look good, sometimes to make someone look awful. At times, political leaders also use photo ops, having their picture taken in a favorable situation to make them look good. Political leaders with championship sports teams, political leaders with famous celebrities and things like that, it can have a positive impact. The other thing political leaders have to be aware of when it comes to media is also the aspect of sound bites. This is when someone says something and you can't get rid of it. Everyone can get a test. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I'm not a crook. Sometimes those type of sound bites can live forever in a politician's career. And sometimes you're trying to use a sound bite in a positive way, and it backfires. In 1988, President Bush, when running for president, said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And 2 years later, he raised taxes. It was done to help shore up the economy, but people never forgave him for that. The higher the ladder on society for people in media, the better things will be. And what I mean by it is this. Certain media outlets like the New York Times and Washington Post will get more attention. If the stories in those publications is more likely to be believed, and for many political leaders, that's what they look to as the gold standard for journalism. Smaller newspapers, publications don't get as much attention. The media can set the agenda for government leaders and shape the news by reporting it, over-reporting it, or not reporting something at all. If the media is not there to report it, in an odd way, it didn't happen. And that's part of media when it comes to covering things. And a few other things related to this. Protesters like to use the media. You know, when people are marching the streets or holding protest signs, media loves to cover those things, and they will cover it because it gets attention. You know, it's good theater. It's good, best way to describe it, visuals. This happens a lot in media. At times, the media and campaigns, when you think about those, it's image over issues, style over substance. That sounds like a terrible thing, but at times people, when they're voting for someone, it's the image of the person. It's likability. And sometimes it's the image over the issues. You know, what's the style? Is it something that jazzes people up? Talk show radio has been a staple for conservatives since the 1980s, really. It's been very effective for conservatives to get their message out. People like Rush Limbaugh, etc., have done very well in the talk show forum. One of the problems in journalism is an aspect called horse race journalism. This happens in political campaigns. It's where the media is so focused on following who's winning and who's losing, instead of following the issues and what's really going on. focusing on who's winning the polls instead of focusing on someone's got a policy idea that they financially can't pay for. And this can be a problem sometimes in media, where they need to focus more on, if someone says, I'm going to solve problem A, and it's going to cost this much money, how are they going to pay for it? And sometimes that doesn't get enough focus. It's the personalities. Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook are changing the way media is now. It's the new forum for political leaders to go to. One last thing I want to add about media. Communication is critical in politics. People who can't communicate just need to shut up. One final thought when it comes to media. Media is a fascinating thing to study. How media reacts to certain things, certain biases, yes, they're there, but we're comfortable with those biases. Media is very powerful. They can bring someone up, they can take someone down. And this just doesn't go for political leaders, it goes for celebrities as well, and other people in society. Take care. Have a great day.